Hello, it's Mictecacihuatl, and I'm doing the first chapter of the appendix of Florentine Codex, Book 3, which talks about Mictlan. So this is kind of weird, but a lot of errors in the Nahuatl, English, and Spanish text, which if I remember, I'll bring it up. So let's start. Here, the beginning of the part of the third book, the part of the appendix which telleth the souls of the dead and still other services rendered. Even though the texts in Spanish and English say devil, in the Nahuatl text, it has a misspelled Tlacatecolot. They just spell this Tlacatecot. And you can tell they kind of, I don't know if they forgot or they misspelled it, but that's pretty much what happens. First chapter, which telleth of the souls of those who died, who went there to the place of the dead, and how they were buried. So, place of the dead in the Spanish text is infierno, but in Nahuatl it's Mictlan. But for some odd reason, Spanish text decided to hell as the text. This is what the natives thought, the old men and the rulers, that all who died went to the one of the three places when they died. Now, the three places is not true, and I'll probably do that in the fourth video from this series. The first place was there in the place of the dead, which is Mictlan, which he spells Inferno again, Sahagun. And there in the place of the dead, there was Mictlantecuhtli, or tzontemoc, and Mictlantecacihuatl, consort of Mictlantecuhtli. So yeah, in the English, they misspelled Mictecacihuatl as Mictlantecuhtli for some odd reason. But if you read this more on, it doesn't say Mictlantecuhtli. So it's just the weirdest error in the book. And there to the place of the dead went all those who died on earth, who died only of sickness, the rulers, the commoners. And when one died, man or woman or child, and when they prayed to him who had died honored, they said to him as he only was lying, as though he was stretched out. O my son, thou hast found thy breath, though thou hast suffered. Our Lord have been merciful to thee. Truly, our common abode is not here on earth. It is only for a little time, only for a moment that have been warm. Only through the grace of our Lord have we come to know ourselves. But now Mictlantecuhtli have presented thee, Alconaucat, tzontemoc, as well as Mictecacihuatl. He hath provided thee a base. He hath provided thee a seat. For there is our common house. There is our common place of perishing. There is enlarging of the earth, where fervor it has ended. Thou hast brought thyself to the place of mystery, the place of unfleshed, the place where there is arriving, the place where no smoke, the place with no fire. No longer wilt thou make thy way through back thy return. No more wilt thou bethink thyself of the life here, of thy past. For some time thou hast gone leaving orphans, thou hast gone leaving people, thou children, thy grandchildren. No more wilt thou bethink themselves how they will each perish. We shall go to reach thee, we shall go to approach thee after some time. And here is that with which they entreated the mourners. O my son, grasp all, apply all that the strength. Force thyself, do not abandon the maize gruel, the half tortilla, which is mostly referring to a child portion. So the prayer that I'm mentioning is for a child. Strain thyself. Of what available is it that we speak as we are accustomed? Thou one therefore just feel ill will be towards us. Thou one therefore just mock us. Our Lord hath willed it, he hath spoken it. Here is his function. Here is his time to die. How mayest thou bring it about, that he might borrow yet a little, yet a mere day on earth? But well then, thou heart, thy body aches, they are in pain. Well then, it is dark where he hath gone, leaving things where he awaiteth the word of our Lord. Well then, thou experience complete orphanage. And then, yeah. What canst thou do, thou who art afflicted? O my son, apply all thy strength. Do not once again hang thy head as in grief. Just now we have come to strengthen thou heart, thy body a little. Here have been devoted, have been satisfied motherhood, fatherhood. Our Lord hath destroyed it. Thou fathers, thy mothers have gone. Thou who would recount the weeping, the tearful words. Enough. Thus we thy mothers, we thy fathers, entreat thee. Pay good heed. Then those skilled with paper, the old men who were experienced, ornamented them. They kept on cutting, they kept on shuttering, they kept on binding the paper. And when they had prepared the paper vestments, thereupon they arrayed the dead one. They sat up, they poured water on his head. They said to him, Here is what thou hast come enjoying, what thou hast lived by on earth. And then they placed a little water into a small vessel. They gave it to him. They said to him, Here is wherewith thou wilt travel. They then put the bowl in with him. Thereupon they wrapped the dead one well. They wrapped him thoroughly. They bound him thoroughly. They bound him closely. Then they apportioned his paper vestment, and when they had apportioned them, then they gave him the assemblage. They laid them out before him. They said to him, Here's wherewith thou wilt pass where the mountains come together, and here is where thou wilt pass by the road which the serpent watches, and here's where thou wilt pass by the blue lizard, the tzontemoc, and here's where thou wilt travel the 8 desert, and here's where thou wilt cross the 8 hills. Here's where thou wilt pass the place of the obsidian blade winds. And in the place of the obsidian bladed wind, it is said that there is much suffering. By winds were all the obsidian blades and the stones swept along. And hence, when men died, their kin burned them all their baskets with enigmas, their shields, their obsidian bladed swords, and all the things they have wrestled with their captives. Here is where thou wilt pass the place of the obsidian blade winds. And in this place, the place of the obsidian bladed winds, was said that there was much suffering. By winds were all the obsidian blades and the stones swept along. And hence, when men died, their kin burned with them all their baskets, with insignia, their shields, their obsidian bladed swords, and all the things they have wrested from their captives, and all their capes, and all which they have their various clothing. Likewise, if it were a woman, all their baskets, their wasted bands, their divided cords for holding up the textile, her skein, her shuffles, her battens, her cane stalk, her comb, all were burned with her. It was said that they would make themselves an enclosure with these things, thus they would crouch protected from the obsidian bladed winds. Not much would they suffer, but he who had not wretched clothing, who went just as he was, endured much, suffered much as he passed the place of the obsidian bladed winds. And also they caused him to take with him a little dog, a yellow one. They fixed about its neck a loose cotton cord. It was said that it would take the dead one across the place of the 9 rivers and the place of the dead. And when they arrived with Mictlantecuhtli, he gave him the various things with which they had adorned the dead here on earth. The wooden figures, which is called ewelot, the pine incense, the smoking tubes, and the loose cotton threads, and the chili red cotton thread, which they had bound up, and in his cape or his breech clouts. And a woman gave up her skirts, her shifts, and all her clothing, what she left as she departed, all which they had bound up. When it was the end of the 80 days, then they burned these. Also the like was done when it was the end of a year, and when it was the end of 2 years, and when it was the end of 3 years. But when it was the end of 4 years, it was the last time they did it. And this, it was said, all arrived with Mictlantecuhtli. And when the 4 years have ended, thereupon the dead one went to the 9 places of the dead, where laid a broad river. These dogs carried one across. It was said that whoever went to pass looked over to a dog, and when it recognized its master, thereupon it threw itself into the water in order to carry its master across. Hence the natives took care of breed dogs. It was said that a white dog and a black one, one which was black, it was said, would not carry one across to the place of the dead. It was said that the white one said, I just washed myself. And the one which was black said, it stained myself black. Only the yellow one could carry one across. And there in the 9 places of the dead, in that place was completed disappearance. And when it came to pass that the old men had ornamented the dead one, then they took him to the fire. And the little dog they first slew, thereupon the dead one and the dog burned. 2 sextons took great care of the dead one, and one of the sextons were gathered singing. And when the body of the dead already was burning, they took great pain with it. They kept packing it down, and the body crackled and popped and smelled foul. And when it had come to pass that they burned it, thereupon they placed it in a heap. They piled up the embers, and they said, Let him be bathed. Thereupon they bathed him, they threw water on him, they kept wetting him, they made a slush. And when it cooled, once again they placed the charcoal in a heap. Thereupon they dug a ground hole in which to place it, a pit. This they called a cave. Thereupon they put the charcoal in. There they covered the pit. And likewise it was done with the noblemen as well the commoners. And when they had burned the body, they sorted out, they gathered up all his bones into a earthen vessel, into a pot. They put them. Upon the bones they placed a green stone. They buried the pot in the home, in the Cohtli of the dead one. And where they buried them, they always made offerings to them. And when the rulers and the noblemen died, they put green stones in their mouths, which the Nahuatl text says "quintololtia," which means made them swallow. So I guess they try to put it in their throats there. And if they were only commoners, they used only greenish stones or obsidian. It was said that they become their heart. And the rulers, with many things they bedizened their paper adornments, which they made was a noble paper streamer, either 4 fathoms or 3 fathoms in length, of paper which they glued together. And upon it they hung various feathers, heron feathers, tropial feathers, dark yellow parrot feathers, scarlet macaw wing feathers, moot feathers, hawk feathers, and still other feathers. And some became the companions of the dead one, the beloved slaves, perchance a score of men, as well as many of the women. Thus they said, as they have come care of their Lord, they yet made chocolate for him. They yet prepared chocolate for him. And the men who have served them as messengers just so would care for them in the place of the dead. And when the ruler already burned, they thereupon slew the slaves. They only drove bird arrows in their throat. They did not burn with the ruler. Only apart they burned the slaves. Quite along the ruler burned. So it kind of gives you a clue on the ruler, emperor's type death ceremony. Anyway, I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye.